Welcome to Viewpoints. I'm Heather Isbron, and with me today are Kyle Faulkner with the City of Fort Worth Fire Department and Charity Menifee, Regional Hospital Coordinator with Knox County Health Department in Tennessee. Welcome.
Thanks for having us.
So you guys are doing something very interesting. Usually our students and graduates are busy implementing their thesis after they graduate, but you are implementing possibly your course paper while you're still in the program and writing your thesis. So can you tell me how that project started and maybe where you're going?
It really all began with an assignment in the technology course where I needed to write about an issue that affects me and my agency. And in past large-scale emergencies, we've had difficulty in managing the social media component of communicating with the public and stakeholders on social media. And in looking for a solution to that, that doesn't always require, more people and more resources, I ran across the virtual operations support team concept, whereas you have a group of volunteers trained to assist an agency with social media, but they do it remotely. And decided to write about that as a possible solution to this issue for our technology and homeland security class. But in looking at the typical VOST model, there are some issues when you try to apply that into government. Within my own agency in the City of Fort Worth, there's difficulties that come in developing a standalone volunteer team. How do you equip them? How do you train them? How do you vet those volunteers? So in trying to understand this problem and look for solutions that will fit within our system, landed on a few tweaks that we could make to it to make it fit. And where the direction it took was working with a local university campus body there in our jurisdiction to develop a group of volunteer students who are already more accustomed to social media, more inclined to be adept and rely on that as a communication channel, and work with those universities to develop that team, train them, and build that partnership and trust so that they could be stood up during an emergency to assist public safety and government manage that social media component. And the other big change that makes that work is no longer are we going to be handing over the keys to the agency's Twitter account. Say, we're going to recruit students who already have access into those parts of the community that we wouldn't otherwise have, rather than try to have our agency social media be all things to all people. We seek out students who have the specialist skills or the language or the cultural access into the different parts of the community so that we know that our messages during emergencies reach everyone in the language that they need and with the cultural context they need as well.
So we had to do a presentation on our projects in that class, and Kyle got up and talked about this, and it really, I remember sitting there and just perking right up when he started talking, because this is a similar issue that we face in my agency as well. I'm working in public health and we have emergencies, and there's just not enough staff to manage the social media aspect. So really wanted to jump in, and we talked after his presentation about what a great idea it was and wanted to get more information, and then that led us into our next course where we were able to partner up and start working on this together in our strategic planning for Homeland Security course as a group project.
Yeah, that was great. The strategic planning course, a key component of that was to develop a project that with the intent of implementing it within your home agency. So saw this as a great opportunity to partner with Charity and continue to develop this model that ended up being called the UVOST, University Virtual Operations Support Team. And I think overall we were a little shocked at the overwhelmingly positive response we've received so far.
Yeah, well, it's in the headlines, it seems, tragically, too often. And I'm sure other agencies around the country have limited resources, much like yours. So what a great idea. What are the limitations, or what are the kind of challenges that you see that you've had to deal with?
You've mentioned it right off the bat, budget issues. Some of the hardest things for us to do is add more people or add more material items to support something like this. So in looking towards a university student body to support this, the goal being to not have a significant budget burden on this, but also, by choosing a younger pool of volunteers, hopefully they'll bring their own equipment to the table with them to be able to support the team and things like that. And less training will be required when you already have students who, as we said, are already adept at social media.
I think one of the other challenges that I see and that we've faced as we've been implementing this is there's a lot of support. So we've gone out, we've talked to our stakeholders, we've talked to our partners in emergency management and response and different agencies that would be working with us ideally on doing this. But it's a lot to coordinate. And so being able to take the time and get through the bureaucracy that happens at all the different agencies with any project like this, I think is a challenge. But overall, everybody that we've both talked to and been working with see the benefits of us working together, because we're all in the same boat with all of these, with the same problems, and not having enough resources, whether the physical resources and the equipment that the students can bring, or just the personnel itself. And so using those students that are already in those in the pockets that we're trying to reach, like Kyle said, that we can't get to. They're not following us on Twitter and Facebook in our organizations. Being able to get that message out in a language they understand to those groups, I think, trumps all of the hurdles that we're having to face.
Right, and so as you go into the universities, what specific type of student would you be looking for?
That was something that we originally discussed. How are we going to market this to students? And I think as this project developed, it really, what we learned from this is that we need to be open to feedback from the universities and be able to take an iterative approach to this project overall. And that question got answered for us by the universities that said, we see value in what you're wanting to do, but what if we tied this in with our communication programs where we're already training students about marketing and social media? Let's tie this in there so that this becomes a part of possibly projects that they have in their programs as well. So again, we can reach students who are already interested in learning how to develop a community and a following on social media.
Yeah, I'm working with a public university in my area that talked about the same thing, and even to the level of bringing in an intern that can oversee the program and keep it moving, and that's a dynamic position that'll keep going on from year to year, new people sliding in, but potentially somebody in a program that's set aside just to manage this, and it's a project that they can do and looks good on their resume, so that's a selling point for them to be able to do that sort of thing as well. So yeah, trying to get that buy-in and support, I think that communications piece that they provided to us, we weren't even thinking along those lines, was very helpful.
That's fantastic, using a government problem and using the universities to solve it at very low cost.
Yes.
So when you're talking about training these students, I mean, they already probably know the social media aspect of it, but what about teaching them the public safety aspect of it and what the concerns or challenges might be with that?
Exactly, and that's something that we, in planning this, we found that very early we're going to need to address. How do you train someone to operate in this environment? During emergency response, particularly large scale, you can't just take anyone and put them in front of a computer and say, hey, you're going to take care of social media. That's a very specialist function that requires specific training on how to operate within that environment. A key win for us was reaching out to the American Red Cross, starting with the chapter in North Texas. They're one of only two, I believe, in the nation that have a digital operations center housed there at their facilities. And as part of that, they already have their own team of volunteer members that support during social media. So in reaching out to the Red Cross and pitching the idea of a UBOS to them, again, they were right there with us. They loved the idea, so much so that they even offered to support us with bringing that training component to train students to operate in that kind of environment.
Fantastic.
And I think the other piece of that our folks were really interested in and really liked was, and there will be some differences in how we implement this, and that's what's great about it, is flexible and that we can do things a little bit differently to meet our community needs, is that we see it really as a way to do some monitoring within the community, so that we're hearing back what the students are seeing on social media about whatever the event is, to give us some situational awareness for the response. So we see it pulling that side as well, and then also them being able to push out the messages that we're developing, so they're not sitting in front of a computer crafting their own messages during the event. They're actually retweeting us or and pushing out what we're trying to get to the public during these events. And so that, I think, gave us a little bit more of a safe spot to sit in with those concerns, and then being able to utilize the Red Cross training to give them the context that they need and what they're doing and what that means in the big picture of a response, I think would be very beneficial to us.
Exactly. We're able, with the Red Cross training and the support of the university, we're able to develop a team that becomes a trusted voice in the community to carry those critical messages out in a timely manner, and like I said, in a language and with the cultural context that's needed, instead of someone who, again, we give the keys to our Twitter, which, is a real point of concern when you come to something
Not
like
going to be a
that.
problem.
Well, FEMA talks about the whole of government approach, and this certainly seems to take in all these pieces very well. So what is your vision for the implementation of this? What do you think the long-term implications are?
We're excited the direction it's going. It started out with the goal of, let's see if we can develop these teams, one in Fort Worth, North Texas area, one in Knox County, utilizing a public university and utilizing a private university. But as this thing has grown and taken on momentum, I would love to see something that pops up multiple teams around the nation, not just so that one team supports the Fort Worth Fire Department or Knox County Health. You have multiple teams that then begin to support each other. So if you have two universities in a large metroplex, if they have an incident on their campus, the other university's team can be stood up to support them. So the more this network is able to develop, the more robust it becomes, and we can begin to see the added value come from that.
Wow, it just sounds like a great project, and we're so excited to have it here and have you guys working with it. Keep us apprised of how it goes.
We will.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thanks
so
for
much.
being here today.
Thank you.